So I'm the librarian that organizes all the computer programs here at the Penfield Public Library. And I think at least until the end of the year, we're going to continue programming in a virtual way. If any of you have not attended any of the programs that have been presented by Arthur Catalanello, you're going to be very well educated about advanced LinkedIn by the end of this program. So just a couple of housekeeping issues. Again, if you could keep yourself muted for the duration of the program. About midway through, we're going to pause for questions, but please feel free to pose your questions in the chat. And we'll also take questions at the end. Or if you're having any difficulties with technology or hearing myself or Arthur, put the hand flag up or pose a question in the chat, or even do what I usually do, wave frantically on the screen. I'm pretty good with technology, but I would not say I'm an expert. I've been at the Penfield Library for about 6 years. I do the computer programs, but I also purchase the adult nonfiction and then all the digital media. But I've been a librarian for about 40 years. Arthur's been one of our presenters for a good 12 or 13 years probably. And, we always like to call him our social media guru. He also does a program on utilizing social media in your job search, which was presented in November. And this fall, I'm sure we will present something else. Right now, the library's programs will continue to be virtual, I suspect at least through the summer, although at some point in the near future, I think the library will probably announce a slight change in our hours. But for the time being, we're just open from 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, and for 4 hours on Saturday. One question I would like to pose to anyone, if you're not from the Rochester area, just to get a gauge of how far afield our patrons are from. If any of you are from outside Monroe County, just send me a note in the chat. I'd like to know. I've noticed when you registered, you had to put in your phone number, and there's a few non-585 area codes. Just curious, with all these virtual programs, we've gotten people from across the country and even a few outside of the US that have joined our programs. Actually, again, just curious. Lastly, sometime next week, all of those who have registered and attend the program, so I'm trying to take attendance based on what your screen identifier says, will receive the PowerPoint presentation that Arthur is presenting today. I will email it to you. And I've got everybody's emails from when you registered. Any other questions, please post them in the chat or wait until the midway point when we take a pause, or at the end of the program. We're scheduled to go until noon, and I know we'll hold to that, or we might even end a little earlier. And with that, I am just going to turn it over to Arthur, and I know that you'll get an awful lot out of this program. I've attended it multiple times over the last 6 years, and I guarantee you'll learn quite a bit from it. So I'll give it over to Arthur. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone for attending and giving up your Saturday morning to learn about LinkedIn. So one of the classes that I teach is an intro to LinkedIn, and this is really meant to be a follow-up to that presentation, taking your skills and your strategies and your content sort of one level up from a beginner section. So let's see here. Advance the slide. So this is going to be the content of my presentation. I'll talk a little bit about my background. When we delve into LinkedIn, I've identified 33 keys to success. We'll talk about settings and privacy because that's always a big issue with any social media platform. Most people use LinkedIn for job search. So I'll talk a little bit about jobs, and then I have some additional tips and tricks that I'll share with you all as well. So my background is I started at Ithaca College as a television and radio major. It was the closest thing Ithaca had to advertising at the time, which was what my true passion was at that age. Social media was something of the Jetsons age back in the 80s and 90s, but here we are talking social media. I spent a good chunk of my career so far at a small company in Fairport called Harvey Research. It's basically the Nielsen company of print advertising. That's the best way to describe it. So we would survey magazines, readers of magazines, to learn about the effectiveness of both advertising and articles. I was laid off twice from that company. So in between, I did a contract job with Xerox where I was an interactive media specialist, including some social media. I also worked at Paychex in the Employer Shared Responsibility Department, which is the Affordable Care Act. I'm currently at Monroe, which a lot of people know by their former name, Monroe Muffler, but they have 10 brands nationwide, Mr. Tire, Tire Choice. I do local listings, which means they're Google ads, Yelp listings, and I also do Google reviews for them. And for about 12 years now, I've also run a consulting business on the side where I help small businesses with any digital advertising and marketing needs that they might have. So one of the things about LinkedIn, which is a big pet peeve of mine, is that perhaps more than any other platform, they will change features, they will change locations of features, they will change menus, they change constantly. It's annoying. And if you're someone that has a hard time dealing with change, all the more reason why you should be on LinkedIn on a regular basis. Right now, they have over 740 million members. And what they will do typically with changes is they will roll them out slowly. So it's not like you wake up someday and every single person has this new feature. So you may find in your conversations with colleagues that you have a feature that they don't, or vice versa. And one of the other things to keep in mind about this presentation is that I'm mostly referring to LinkedIn on the website, you know, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, not the mobile app. There are a lot of features that are in common. Obviously, information is the same, but where they're located is different. So when I refer to locations and things like that, I'm referring to the desktop version of LinkedIn. One of the things you need to think about with LinkedIn is whether or not you're comfortable giving up certain pieces of information in exchange for a better experience. So as an example, one of the ways LinkedIn makes money, because it's a free social media platform that you can join, one of the ways they make money is through trying to convince you to upgrade to a paid account, which you don't necessarily have to do. But another way they make money is through advertising. And with advertising, they want to be as targeted as possible. So they want to show you an advertisement that suits your interests, suits your background, suits your needs. And how they know that is, you know, through sharing information with LinkedIn. So you just have to decide, are you willing to give up some of that privacy, some of that information about your habits, your interests, in exchange for a better experience? And it's really a personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer to that. The biggest key with LinkedIn is to see and be seen. So when I say see, that means searching for content, viewing content, and to be seen, that's done through engagement. You want to be able to provide value to your network with anything that you do. And I've identified 33 areas that I think are the biggest keys to success on LinkedIn. So we'll start with your profile picture. You want to make sure that you include appropriate, current, and a professional headshot. This is not Facebook, this is not LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or any other social media platform. LinkedIn is meant to be professional, so you want to make sure your headshot is professional. And when you don't include one, it typically gives the impression to others of two things. Either you don't know how to include a headshot or you have something to hide. So neither of which is a good first impression to make. It builds trust when you include a headshot. Have a friend take one, or there are local places and businesses that will take one for you. You want to make sure your face is prominent in the picture. So you don't want something on a beach where you're, the size of a grain of rice. Don't include a pet with your picture. Don't be in the middle of a group photo. Try not to use a selfie. It just doesn't give the impression that people on LinkedIn expect to see. Another area that you can use to brand yourself is the background or banner picture. The right picture can grab someone's attention, and it can help demonstrate or reinforce who you are and what you do. So at different points in the presentation, I share the URL to my LinkedIn account. The background image that I'm using is a presentation I made about social media. So it's demonstrating what I do. It's a picture of myself in action. Depending on your industry, that's not always possible. So you can include something that is relevant to your industry. You can even include a picture of the skyline of the city in which you work. Just something other than that boring, blank, completely plain blue background, if you can. One of the things you want to make sure is that your name is both professional and is consistent. So, I don't go on LinkedIn and call myself Smarty Arty, the LinkedIn guru or something like that. It's just not appropriate for LinkedIn. So make sure it matches your digital footprint in other areas. So if you're looking for work or you're using LinkedIn to represent a company, you want to make sure it's professional, it matches how your name is used in other platforms. The headline is very important because the custom default setting is that it's just your current job title and your current employer. It's quite boring. It doesn't really explain what you do. So for example, my headline, if I didn't change it, would be digital marketing specialist - local listings. What does that mean? Local listings, am I a realtor? If you're in digital marketing, you might know what that means. So instead, take the time to customize your headline and use it to differentiate yourself from the potential competition in your industry. You can use certain keywords if they make sense. It helps reinforce who you are. So again, picking on myself, if I'm in marketing, I want to make sure one of the keywords in my headline says marketing. People will see your LinkedIn headline when you share a post or when you comment on someone else's post. So it really is part of what gives that first impression. So headline is very important. People tend to look for experts on LinkedIn. So if there's something that you're an expert in, you can consider incorporating that into your headline. Fifth key to success is your summary. So this is really where you get a chance to sell yourself to someone who is looking at your profile. One of the things you can do is an elevator pitch. I don't know if you've heard that term used before. Basically, it means if you were finding yourself in an elevator with the CEO of a company that you were interested in, and you had just 30 seconds to sell yourself to that individual before that person got off on a different floor, what would you say to that person to talk about who you are, what you can do, what you might bring to that company, what makes you different from someone else, what's your unique value proposition? So if you have that elevator pitch that you've memorized in a networking function where you go and you introduce yourself and tell about who you are and what you do, try typing that out. That's something that you could put into a summary. You can also consider using what's called either a star or a scar story, where there's a situation and a tactic, an action that you took, and then what was the result. So that's often something that people have prepared for interviews, where someone will ask, tell me about a situation you had where, you had to overcome a challenge. What was it? What did you do? What was the outcome of that? Those are great things to share. You can do so in your LinkedIn summary. And usually those by nature have keywords built into them. So that's another good place to include keywords. Try to avoid abbreviations unless you're certain that the person viewing your profile would know what that abbreviation stands for. One of the things that I suggest is that you focus on keywords and not buzzwords. So in that first bullet point there, I've listed what I've seen in multiple places online are considered to be the 10 most overused buzzwords on LinkedIn. So I'm not saying that you can't say that you're creative or that you're experienced or that you're passionate or that you have leadership. Just keep in mind, these are very overused words. So if someone is searching for enthusiastic, they're going to find a ton of people in that search result. So break out the thesaurus, come to your local library and look up some of these keywords and find different ways that you can, different words that you can use. Having the right keywords is key to being found, because think about LinkedIn like you do Google. If someone is looking to hire someone, they're not searching on your name, they're searching on either keywords for skills, or they're searching on keywords for work habits, personality traits, things like that. One of the things you can consider is if you were to search for a job, or if you were to find a job on LinkedIn that you were interested in, look at the actual job description. What are the keywords that are listed in that job description, and do you have them in your profile? Some of the areas that you can include keywords in that last bullet point: your headline, your summary, job titles, the responsibilities under those job titles. If someone endorses or recommend you, are they doing so for those keywords? So again, think keywords, not buzzwords. One of the big keys to success is growing your network. So you can connect with coworkers, whether they're your current coworkers or people you used to work with. You can connect with old classmates, depending on your age. That may be more years ago than others. One of the things I encourage younger people to do, especially if they're currently in college, connect with current classmates. You have no idea who's going to be the next Bill Gates. So connect with them while you know them, maintain them in your network as you go forward. You can connect on LinkedIn with friends and family, even though Facebook is for fun supposedly, and Instagram is for fun. Who's more likely to help you, especially if you're looking for work, than someone that is a close friend or family? So a lot of people don't think about trying to connect with people on LinkedIn that they're friends and family. So that's a great group of people to add into your professional network. And as you meet people at networking events, you can add them in as well. LinkedIn will bug you about connecting, syncing your email address book with LinkedIn. They'll say things like, hey, sync your email address book, your Hotmail, your Gmail, whatever it is, sync it with here, and we'll look to see if anyone in your address book is on LinkedIn. I like to be a little more targeted in my approach with who I connect with. So I've never synced any of my email address books with LinkedIn for that reason. I don't need LinkedIn suggesting me to people I have in my email address book. If I want to connect with them, I'll find them, and I'd rather do it purposely and individually rather than just a blanket approach. Now, LinkedIn says we won't reach out to anyone without your permission, and I don't necessarily trust that. That's just me. But if you want to, if that will help speed things up with growing your network, you're welcome to do so. One of the things you should also give some thought to as you start out, whether you're starting out with LinkedIn or you've been a user for 10, 12 years, is think about your connection strategy. There's, on one extreme, you can be what's called a LION, LION, stands for LinkedIn Open Networker, which means you'll connect with anyone for any reason at any time. You don't necessarily have had any contact with them. You don't necessarily have had to meet them in person. So whoever it is, just if they send you an invite, you'll connect. You'll connect with anybody at any time. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is, no, I really need to know them well. because there's a chance someone may ask me for a recommendation about that person. And if I don't know them really well, I'm not comfortable, recommending them or endorsing them. So I'm only going to connect with people that I know really, really well. So those are the two extremes. And then you have everything in the middle, right? You have people that, maybe you've met at a networking function and you both agreed, hey, let's connect. Maybe we can help each other network and find some inside contacts at companies to help us with our applications. Maybe they're people casually. You have to get to know them through a coffee meeting, when it's not COVID, or a Zoom meeting or something like that. So there's all sorts of tolerances across that spectrum. You need to decide what you're most comfortable with, and then use that going forward with your, with who you accept and who you approach. When you do decide to connect with someone, please, please, please take the time to customize your invite. It takes 30 seconds to type a quick sentence. Hi, John. We met at this event. We talked about X. I'd really like to add you to my network because I think I can help you with X. So you want to remind the person about how you might know each other, what value it is to them in connecting. And remember that good networking is a give to get approach. A friend of mine, Greg Taylor, was recently featured in a podcast that I saw on LinkedIn. And he had a great analogy about give to get networking, which is it's similar to going into a bank and asking for a withdrawal before you've made a deposit. So good networking is you must give to others before you can ask for something in return. So it's about give to get. It's what can you do for that person before you ask for help with getting introduced to someone else. So keep that in mind. LinkedIn allows you to list relevant skills, and relevant is all, it's all relative, right? I could get endorsed, someone might say, hey, Arthur's great at eating a 1-pound cheeseburger in 4 minutes. That has no relevancy. May be true, may not be true, but that's not a skill that is appropriate to LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has an algorithm where as people start to say, you know what, yeah, Arthur has that skill, they will start suggesting it to people. So they will say on, if someone visits my profile, is Arthur good at this? And if people say, maybe, probably, I'm sure, and they select it, it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So one of the things you can do is you can change the order of the skills that are listed. And just because someone has said, hey, Arthur's good at this, if you don't think you are, you don't have to show it. So take some time to customize that list. You can only get 50. And one of the things you also want to do is look at jobs you're applying to. So if jobs consistently want to see 8 skills or 10 skills, and they have that in common, and you have those skills, you better make sure those are included among your 50. And not only that, put them towards the top of the list, because not every person looking at your profile is going to look at all 50 skills. So put the ones that you want featured, that you believe are the most relevant, that you want to be the most known for, put those towards the top. And again, give to get. One of the things you can also do is, the best way to get these skills endorsements is basically to ask. You can do it for someone else and say, you know what, I'd like to verify that these 4 skills on your LinkedIn profile are true and that you want to be known for. What are the 4? And they'll tell you, I'd really want to be known for digital marketing and this and this and this. And then you can ask, hey, would you mind returning the favor? I really want to be endorsed for these skills. So keep in mind that just because you're endorsed for something doesn't mean you have to show it. So it helps add credibility if 100 people all say, yes, John Smith, you're really good at project management. That's great, right? That's not just you telling someone I'm good at project management. That's 100 independent people verifying or acknowledging, yes, that person is really good at project management. And I mentioned this, just a minute ago, the best way to receive an endorsement of a skill set is to do that for someone else, and hopefully they'll return the favor or ask. And just be specific about the skills that you're hoping to be endorsed for. You can change the order and you can hide them. Recommendations are basically separate from endorsements. They're one-offs. They're more like a traditional, if you really want to go back in time before social media was a thing and people would apply on LinkedIn and online, application job boards and things of that nature. People used to print and snail mail a resume to someone, US mail, lick the stamp, put it on the envelope. And often at the very bottom of the resume, it would say references available upon request. That's basically what a recommendation is. It's a more detailed paragraph, 2 paragraphs, whatever it might be. It's a recommendation about the individual. And again, you can give one and hopefully the person will return the favor. You can suggest things that the person talks about. If you're worried, if you take an honest assessment of your background, your experience, how you stack up against the competition, and you're worried about this one thing where you think you fall short, but you have it, that's something that you can ask someone, hey, we work together. Do you think you can focus on talking about X when you write your recommendation for me? Depending on how well you know that person, you can ask that they send it to you in an email first, and you tweak it and massage it a little bit. And if they're okay with it, that you're kind of putting words in their mouth a little bit. But depending on your relationship, you can really fine tune that recommendation to be what you want it to say. And don't forget to have good professional manners. Thank the person that endorses or recommends you. LinkedIn purchased the Lynda website, which has a lot of different classes and skills that you can take. So you can take a skills assessment, and when you're done with that skills assessment, you can display proof that you have that skill set on your profile. Displaying verified skills can help increase your odds by as much as 30%, depending on the field that you're in. And you can retake these skills assessments as often as you like before you display the results. So that's something to keep in mind. They also have full-blown courses that you can take through LinkedIn. And when you're done, you get a certificate of completion. So if someone was worried, oh, does Arthur know Google Analytics? I could take a course in that, display the certificate. There's proof that, yes, I can do that skill. I could tell people I have the skill. I can list it as a description under previous job functions, but here's quote unquote proof by LinkedIn that that you passed that course, you have that skill set. And if you're switching careers, it can be especially helpful because you can learn things through LinkedIn that will, you may not have, if you're switching careers, you may not have the experience, but you can demonstrate you have the knowledge by completing courses through LinkedIn. LinkedIn by nature is kind of a boring site when it comes to individual profiles, right? Most people's profile looks the same. You have a profile picture, you have the banner image, you have the headline, you have the summary, you have your job functions and your responsibilities. So how do you break through that clutter? You put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter or a hiring manager, and they're vetting candidates that have applied for a job, and they're on LinkedIn profile number.
Please come to circulation. Charlotte to circulation.
They're on profile number 13, and their eyes are starting to gloss over. How do you break through that monotony of all this text-heavy content? You can include media in your profile. And by media, I mean you can include pictures, videos, you can include presentations. If you've written or been featured in a white paper or a case study, you can include that. If you've designed a brochure, or if you've written a blog on your own outside of LinkedIn, and there's a way to do it in LinkedIn, which we'll talk about. If you have an infographic resume that is conveys your experience in a faster and more unique way, that's a great way to break through the clutter. So any of these things helps shape you into more of a 3D view of who you are because you've included some of these extra things. And media at the end of the day has a higher share rate, meaning media is more likely to be shared than just text. So it's a great thing to include. You know, the old adage, you know, show, don't tell, is really true. So anywhere where you can add media just helps differentiate the content and spices things up. You want to make sure that you engage with content from your network. So LinkedIn by nature works the best when you're active in the platform. It's great that you've created an account and you have an account. This isn't like a crock pot where you make a meal, you dump it in, you hit a button and you come back 8 hours later and magically you have this great meal. LinkedIn, you have to work at. You have to put out content, publish content, you have to engage with content, you have to grow your network. It's similar to, you know, planting a garden. You can't just plant it and hope everything works out. You have to water, you have to weed. So it does take some work. So one of the things you can do as you scroll through your news feed of people that you're connected to and companies that you're following is if you find that content remotely valuable or interesting or entertaining, hit the like button or comment on it or share it. You know, liking's good, commenting is better, sharing is best. Anything that you can do to engage with content in your profile will be seen by people in your network that you're connected to. And the best way to maintain your network is to engage with the people in your network and the content that they're sharing as well. You can add to the content stream. So it's great that you've shared, liked, or commented on what other people have posted, but here's an opportunity for you to post something. So if you find something, especially if it's outside of LinkedIn, but you can certainly share content that you find within LinkedIn. But if you come across an article or a blog or something in an industry publication or on a website, or maybe it's maybe in your industry, you belong to a professional or a trade association, and they have a website or they have a blog or they have an email newsletter. If there's something that you think is valuable, that's interesting, that others might benefit from, share it to LinkedIn. So, you know, by adding to the content stream, you're adding value to people in your network. One of the things you can do is you can create an article, which is basically like a blog. It's a post option. There's a headline. There's the body of the article. You can include pictures and links to websites. You can include videos. It's just as it sounds. It's creating an article. So you can share one of your SCAR or STAR stories. You can talk about an experience that you had. You can talk about maybe something that's in the news and why you have a different perspective on what that news item is. Anything you think can add value, you can put into an article. And articles are easily shared by others. It's a great way to get your name and demonstrate your expertise or your thought leadership to people other than who you're directly connected to. And if there are keywords in the article, all the better, because if people search on a keyword, not only do people show up and not only do companies show up, but articles show up. So it's a great way to be found and identified and associated with some of those keywords. And if you have a blog outside of LinkedIn, you can either share a link to it, or you can just copy the content into LinkedIn and post it twice. And I've done that in the past, and I've had content that had better viewership on my blog, on my website, and I've had content that was viewed more times and shared more often on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, if it starts seeing momentum and engagement with your article, will start suggesting it to others as well. It's a great way to get your name out and to be recognized as a subject matter expert. One of the other features when you go to create a post is a poll option. So you'll probably see that as you scroll through your feed. You can create a poll if you're curious about a topic and you're wondering what people, thoughts are for different options, different choices. If you want to create an article, it's a great way to throw maybe 4 scenarios out there and find out what's the most popular, what's the most interesting. You could even say, hey, I'm thinking of starting a blog. Here are 4 article ideas that I have that I might write about for my very first post. Which one would you be most interested in? Let people vote. There you go. There's your answer. That can become your first article that you write about. It's easy to post. It's 1 question, up to 4 choices, and you can leave that poll open for anywhere from a day to 2 weeks. The more people you're connected to, obviously, the more votes you're going to get. It's just a way to encourage engagement with your network. It's a really new, it's not super new, but it's a neat feature that you can use with LinkedIn. And this sounds kind of obvious, but keep your information updated. If you created a LinkedIn profile 4 years ago and you haven't done anything to your profile in 4 years, it could probably use some refreshing. Make sure your employer is current, your job title is current. Maybe you've done some, you've had new responsibilities or you have a new accomplishment. Maybe it's updating an accomplishment. Maybe one of your bullet points under your job title is I increased output by 30%. Well, maybe in the last 6 months, you've increased it by 45%. Maybe it's as simple as updating just that number figure. Make sure your location is current. Maybe you've moved in the last 4 years and you forgot to change that in your LinkedIn profile. If you've changed your contact information that you have listed, if your profile photo shows, hey, I have hair, and I'm picking on myself here, and now you don't have hair, you better make sure your profile is updated with a current photo. Including a current location will help you appear in 23 times more searches. The world is going more virtual. Remote opportunities for work are more popular than they were 2 years ago. But if there's something that has to be done locally, you want to make sure that your location is listed there. Because if someone's specifically looking for marketing in Rochester, New York, and I'm listed as New Jersey, I'm not going to show up. So you want to make sure that your location is included. And one of the things you can do, and I'll show you later in the presentation where you can do this, is add multiple email addresses, but pick one to display publicly. This helps with connecting with people. So as an example, I spent over 20 years working at Harvey Research. So naturally, people that I'm connected to know me from there, know what my email address was there. They've probably connected with me already, but if they hadn't and they come across me in the profile, they may be like, oh, let me dig up that email I got from Arthur that one time, invite them on LinkedIn, and they'll search for me using my Harvey Research email address. If I've removed that or never included it in my profile, I won't be found, or I won't receive that invite necessarily if they're using my email to try to connect with me. So I have in my profile, even though it's not displayed, I have my Harvey Research email, I have my Paychecks email, I have a couple of different personal emails, I have my consulting email, I have my Monroe email address. So it's all there. I just choose the personal email that I publicly displayed across social media platforms as the one to display. That way, no matter how someone knows me, it'll find me. Granted, I have a unique name, but if your name is Mike Jones, how does LinkedIn know the right Mike Jones to connect with? So you want to include multiple email addresses. Make sure you proofread your profile. Again, this is kind of common sense, but you've gone through the previous 19 steps to try to make a great first impression, to try to be found, to try to be seen. If they land on your profile and they start to read it and you have typos, sad trombone sound effect here, they're moving on at that point. So proofread it. And it's hard to proofread your own work. So maybe pair up with a friend or a colleague and say, hey, do you mind proofreading my profile for me, making sure it all makes sense? I don't have any obvious typos or a missing word in a sentence or something like that. and I'd be happy to do the same for you, return the favor that way. So, anytime you make a profile update, make sure you proofread that update. Just, good best practice to do. LinkedIn will allow you to connect with up to 3 websites, so take advantage of that. You could connect to your current company if you want to, but at the end of the day, your company isn't paying you to promote them, unless you're in marketing. So promote yourself here. Here's a chance to promote to your own website if you have one, or a blog that you maintain, or maybe you've uploaded a portfolio somewhere that displays your work, or a summary of projects that you've worked on. So if you have any digital footprint outside of LinkedIn that helps promote you, use the opportunity to connect to those websites. Separately, LinkedIn allows you to connect to a Twitter account if you have one. Do it. It helps you be found, unless you're using your Twitter account for some hobby that people would consider bizarre or questionable. Then don't. But if you have a Twitter account and you use it, and it's okay, you're not worried about being embarrassed by what you pushed out on Twitter. It's just one more way for the emphasizing web and World Wide Web. It's just more ways for people to connect the dots and get back to you. When you first sign up for a LinkedIn account, LinkedIn is going to give your profile a website address or a URL that's going to be this weird combination of letters and numbers and characters that kind of looks like you, but maybe not you. But they also give you the opportunity to customize your website address. It's easy. So if you look at mine, which is in that last bullet point, when I first signed up for LinkedIn, it probably said something like 1 Arthur 345 Catalanello XJM26 or something. Could you tell it was me? Probably, if you cut through some of that clutter of extra characters that LinkedIn assigns, but you can tighten that up and shorten it up, and now it looks a lot better. It's streamlined, it's professional. There's no question. Now, if you have a name that's a common name, a Mary Smith, whatever the case might be, you might have to put a number after it, or you might be, Mary Smith, Penfield, New York, or Mary Smith, engineer, or something along those lines. But try to be consistent, whatever it is that you pick. Also try to be consistent with your digital footprint outside of LinkedIn. So if you're using any other platforms to, especially professionally, to try to promote yourself, you don't want to be, one thing on one platform and something very different on another platform. You want to make it easy for recruiters and hiring managers and customers to connect the dots and find you. LinkedIn gives you the ability.
Hey, Arthur, I've got a question.
Sure.
So can you go back that one slide? That's something that I didn't know about, changing the URL. Where can you actually do that in LinkedIn? Is that in some settings field? How do I actually do that?
Yeah.
That's a great thing to do.
Yep, I'll show you later in the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Yep. LinkedIn gives you the ability to add additional sections to your profile. So if there's something relevant, by all means, go ahead and do it. It's a great way to be found. So, if it adds more depth and shows who you are as a person. So one of the categories that I've listed there is volunteering. A lot of times people will look at someone who volunteers a lot in a more positive light than someone who doesn't. Not always, but it might be, maybe you volunteer for children's cancer, and someone, a hiring manager, they've had someone in their family, a child that had cancer. There's an immediate connection. So take a look at those extra sections that LinkedIn allows you to add, and consider doing that. It's just extra content to help you be found. And you can also rearrange the sections as well. So think about, if someone's only going to take 30 seconds to scan your profile, what do you want them to see if they can't get through your entire profile? So make sure that you rearrange it in the order that you think is most suitable for yourself. LinkedIn allows you to join up to 100 groups. So, and groups come in all shapes and sizes. There are groups by industry, there are groups by organizations, associations, there are localities and regions, there are alumni groups. There are about 8,000 new groups that get added each week. And just because a group is large doesn't mean it's active, doesn't mean it's the best fit. I'll show you, later where you can go to look for groups. The biggest reason why people sometimes hesitate to join multiple groups is because they're afraid they're going to get inundated with emails and content, and you can customize the frequency and the method that you get notified of group content. So don't let that dissuade you. It's a great way to meet new people, get additional exposure. It's a great way to find content, right? If you're worried about a source where am I going to go to find something that I can share on LinkedIn? You can find an article in a group that's relevant to your industry and your profession and share it outside of that group to your network. So joining groups is a great thing to do. You want to watch what you post. Usually this is something that's more appropriate to people of my kids' age, about posting something that is nice and positive and not embarrassing or anything like that. There are, there's an acronym, THINK. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So think about what it is that you post. We're almost up to 33, so let me get through these last few, and then we'll take a quick pause for some questions, just so you don't have to wait to the very end. One of the things that LinkedIn allows you to do is to download and back up your information. It's not something that a lot of people do, but think about it. If you've been on LinkedIn for a while and you've taken a lot of time to craft your profile and tweak it and perfect it, you've built this network of people and you're connected to them. You've shared articles, you've liked articles, you've bookmarked articles. You have all this great history on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden, sometime for some reason, it disappears and you have to start from scratch. That would be awful. So take the time to download and back up your information. And that third bullet point there walks you through where to go and how to do it. It starts with the me icon in the top toolbar. You click on that, it drops down, you go to account and then settings and privacy. Then you go to data privacy, and finally how LinkedIn uses your data / get a copy of your data. So once you're there, you can download bits and pieces of your profile, or you can download all of it. And if you ever, for any reason, had to restore your profile, you have it, you could go back to your backup. Might not be 100%, but it would get you to 98% if you do it often enough, that download and backup. And as much as I know about LinkedIn, I will share with you that a couple of years ago, my account was hacked on LinkedIn. I had a good password. It was a strong password. I had no idea how it was done, but somebody hacked my account. And the first thing they did was they changed the password and they changed the email addresses associated with my account. So when I went in to log in, it didn't recognize my email address because the hacker got rid of all my email addresses. And it didn't recognize my password because they changed my password. Fortunately, they didn't change any of my content. What they were doing was they were spamming my connections with direct LinkedIn messages containing a link to a bogus site, probably had a virus, who knows. The good news is I was able to get back in to my account, and they were able to boot out the hacker. But had they deleted any of my content or information, having a backup would have been how I would have been able to restore it. You can also adjust your profile visibility settings. So again, LinkedIn offers you some options, right? You can have fully visible profile. So if I were to visit your profile, you would see my picture, you would see my name, you would see my headline, you would see my job title, you would see my employer. It's fully visible, no secret that I was the one who visited your profile. Opposite end of the spectrum is you can be fully stealth, or as I like to call it, fully stalker mode. It'll just show, it won't show anything about me. You will have no idea if I'm male or female. You will have no idea where I'm located,
If
what industry I'm in.
Bruce is in the library, please come to the circulation.
You won't
desk,
know
Alexandra
my
Bruce.
industry or my job title or anything else. And then there's a setting that's right in the middle of those two. It'll show you some general vague characteristics. So if I were to visit your profile, it would say someone from the marketing and advertising industry in the Rochester, New York area visited your profile. So you just have to decide for yourself, you know, am I okay with someone knowing I checked out their profile? Or do you want to be stalker, or do you want to be in the middle? So I have mine fully visible. It's really a personal preference. There's no pros or cons. I think when you're fully visible, you in return get more insight as to who has visited your profile, but just something to keep in mind. And up until I updated this presentation, there was a hack that was available where I could still see someone who thought they were fully invisible. I could still tell that they visited my profile. And it was my favorite all-time hack on LinkedIn. And when I went the other evening to make sure you could still do that, because I love including it in this presentation, it wasn't working. I don't know if that was a temporary thing on LinkedIn, so I don't want to say that capability has fully gone away, but it may have. But just in case, if you do set your setting for fully invisible, keep in mind if that hack returns or a different hack is created, someone might still be able to find that out. You know, a lot of people think of LinkedIn as just basically a digital or a social media version of your resume. And it kind of is, but you know, think about what the rule is for a resume. Typically, your resume not to exceed 2 pages in length, maybe 1 page if you can get it to 1 page, and that's it. You only go back so many years. You can only list so many bullet points. You know, opinions on resumes are, you know, like noses. Everyone has a nose, so everyone has an opinion on what a resume should look like and everything else. LinkedIn's different. LinkedIn has more content. It should have more content. It should have more detail. It should have media. You know, you can't, your resume for the most part is a static document. It's text only. You can have a link to it. Maybe if you send it as a Word document attachment in an email, that link will work. But for the most part, it's there. It's, you know, it's just text, and that's kind of it. Your LinkedIn profile, if you followed all these keys, it's typically going to have more detail. It's going to have links. It's going to have pictures. It's going to have videos. It's going to have examples of your work. So it's going to be more robust. So now the two should match and mirror each other. You know, to that, you wouldn't want a hiring manager to see something on a resume and then go to your LinkedIn profile and it doesn't back that up, that claim up that, you know, you have that skill or you have that experience. So they should align, but they shouldn't necessarily match word for word, space for space, line for line. Think about the fact that every year the world in general gets more mobile friendly. More people are using a cell phone to access the web, access social media, access all sorts of things. They do it, you know, laptops aren't going away, but people are becoming, you know, more comfortable using their cell phone. So think about how your profile looks using the mobile app of LinkedIn. You might have a nice long headline that looks great on the website version of LinkedIn, but gets cut off on mobile. So if someone is using it in a mobile way, you want to make sure that you convey your point before it gets cut off. Same with your summary. Your full summary, it's still visible, but if you don't grab their attention in what is visible on mobile, they may not click through to read the rest. So keep that in mind. You may have to rearrange how you word things, what you put at the top of your summary, what you put at the beginning of your headline, to make sure that you grab their attention so that they click through to read the rest. LinkedIn will coach you along the way to make sure that you get your profile to 100%, or what they consider and call an all-star level profile. They'll tell you, add your education to your profile, where you went to college or where you went to high school. It'll give you 10 percentage points on your way to 100% complete, or add an additional job, or add an additional skill, or get an additional endorsement or recommendation. So it will coach you as to what you can add to your profile to get up to 100%. And the biggest reason why you want to get to 100% is you're more likely to be found by someone searching for certain keywords, certain industries, certain companies, job titles. You're 40 times more likely to receive opportunities from prospective employers or companies. And they're only, a little over half of all LinkedIn users have a profile to 100% complete. So that puts you at a big advantage when it comes to being found on LinkedIn, if you have a fully complete profile. Companies have business profiles on LinkedIn. So besides connecting to individuals, you can follow target companies. And anytime they're in the news or they push out content, that will appear in your news feed. So it's a great way to keep in the know and keep updated on what's happening at a company. So if you are looking for work and you have a target list of 12, 20 companies, whatever the number is, you would have to go to each of those companies' websites separately and individually and hope that they've maintained their website with the latest news to find out, what they're up to currently. If you follow them all on LinkedIn, it's nice and conveniently packaged, and it will appear in your news feed for you. There's a feature on the business profiles that will say people also viewed. Think about, I'm sure most of you have ordered something from Amazon or Home Depot, any company. You probably browse something online, and inevitably there's somewhere on that page, on the checkout page, will say, oh, people that purchase this product also purchased this, or people that viewed this listing also looked at this. LinkedIn has a similar thing. So I used to work at Paychex. A lot of people, especially in Rochester, know what Paychex is. They do human resources, they do payroll, they do a lot of things related to those two functions. But how many of you know who their biggest competitors are? They have several. So if you were to go to the Paychex LinkedIn profile, it will show you people also viewed, and there will be a handful of companies listed there. So if you really want to get a job at Paychex and you're not having any luck, right there, right in front of you is a list of 5 or 6 similar companies that you may not even know about, that maybe you want to suddenly put on your radar and add them to your target company list because they're a similar fit, because they do similar things. So it's a great additional source. When you go to search on LinkedIn, there are filters at your disposal, and they're great because you can there's a whole list there. I'm not going to bore you by reading that list, but you can filter by multiple items. So the more you filter by, the more refined and specific your search result will be. And you can also save your searches as well. So that's a big key. If I just search on marketing, I'm going to get everything under the sun. I'm going to get sales jobs. I'm going to get advertising that happens to mention marketing somewhere. I'm going to get people. I'm going to get people overseas. So if I start to refine my search by saying, all right, well, show me marketing, but show me who I'm directly connected to. And besides that, show me people that have worked at, these companies. And besides that, show me, people that have had, this job title or this level of experience, that kind of thing. Or they have, a certain school in common. They also went to Ithaca College. So I can reach out to them with that commonality and sort of, bridge the gap that way and reach out to them that way. So there's a lot in that list. Take advantage of it. There's an advanced search technique called the Boolean search method that you may or may not have heard of. Again, I won't read this list, but know that this is available to you. So if you were to search for, and you, whatever the search term is, you put it in quotes, it has to match exactly what appears within the quotes, or it won't be returned in the search. So if I want to look for HR managers and I don't put it in quotes, I'll get probably HR. I may get manager, I may get HR manager, and I may get a lot of extraneous things in the search result. But if I put it in quotes, it has to be HR manager exactly as it appears, or it won't return. Similar to using and, or not in all caps. And there's examples there. And you can also combine some of those by using parentheses. The other great thing is not only can you do this, but you can use the previous slide. So I can use Boolean, and I can use filters, and I can save those searches. So as you get these search results and you're like, you come back to LinkedIn and a couple of days have passed and you're like, oh, what was it that I did that got me that page that showed me those results? You can save those searches and come back to them later, which is great. So this is the point where I'm going to take a sip of water because I've been talking for a while. Hopefully I haven't put you to sleep. Here's a handy checklist when you get this PowerPoint mailed to you. If you want to print this slide off, this is a checklist of all the 33 things that I've covered so far. And there's a few more tips that I'm going to talk about as well. But this will help you check off where you've come with updating your profile. Anyone have any burning questions that I haven't covered yet?
I didn't see any questions in the chat.
Okay.
But anyone that has a question, I guess unmute yourself and ask away.
Or put it in chat, or at the
Yeah.
very end of the presentation, I do have my contact information. If you're embarrassed about asking a certain question and you want to ask it privately, I'm more than happy to answer it privately for you as well. All right, let's move on in the interest of time.
Okay.
So settings and privacy. So this is important with any social media platform you use, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. This is important. And this is something you should pay attention to at least once a year. Twice is even better. A lot of times LinkedIn, when they make a change or they push out an update, they sometimes change your settings. So take the time to go through them. In general, this is a list of the things that I suggest. So earlier I shared how I was hacked, right? The first thing I did when I got my account restored is I turned on two-step verification. What that means is I'm here at the Penfield Library today rather than talking to you from my kitchen. So I'm using their laptop. So when I went in to log into LinkedIn, LinkedIn did not recognize this laptop as being associated with me. So they sent a 6-digit code to my cell phone that I had to type in to prove that I am who I am. Then they let me into my LinkedIn account. Had I had that prior to the hacker, I would not have been hacked. So definitely do that, and I'll show you later where you can do that. If you're currently employed and you're thinking about looking for work and you haven't done a lot of updates to your profile, and you want to go and you want to tackle that list of 33 that I shared with you, your network by default is going to see all of those profile updates. So if you've been relatively quiet on LinkedIn for the last several months or years, and suddenly you're going nuts like a hamster on a spin wheel with all of your updates to your profile, that may look a little suspicious to your boss. So before you make those updates, turn off that feature. That way you can make all sorts of updates to your profile, and the fact that you're doing so won't be broadcast to your network. One of the things that you can, I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to be fully visible when you visit others' profiles, be fully invisible, or somewhere in the middle. So, under settings and privacy is where you would select how you want that setting to be. So give that some thought. Again, no right or wrong answer. It's just a personal preference. You can decide whether or not you'd like someone else to see who you're connected to. A lot of times salespeople, they use LinkedIn to prospect and to build up leads. And that's very important to them. And they don't want people to see who their list of prospects are. There's a way to turn that off so that nobody can see who you're connected to. So that's something that you can do. You can also change the setting to make it visible to, only certain people, certain contacts. So make sure you do that. You can make your email visible or invisible, your cell phone visible or invisible. You can make it visible to connections. So there's lots of settings and lots of areas. And since I last did this presentation, it's all still there. LinkedIn just moved where you find it. So, I mentioned that at the very beginning. LinkedIn changes things all the time, which is why I intentionally avoided a lot of screenshots this time, because if you start to work on this and then you get distracted because the weather's getting nice and you come back to, in the fall, oh, let me go in and start working on my profile, there's a good chance those screenshots will no longer be relevant. So, just know that it's all there. You may have to use, if you don't do it right away, you may have to go to the help menu to try to find things. And one of the last general tips I have for settings and privacy is I mentioned how you can see viewers of this company profile. Viewers of paychecks also look at these other companies. There's a setting similar to that for individuals. So you can say, oh, people that looked at Arthur's profile also looked at these individual profiles. So if you're looking for work, think about it this way. If you're, let's say, an IT project manager, and you're looking for work and you're actively applying to jobs, and a hiring manager comes to your profile, and you have this setting on that people of your profile can also see who other people viewed, why would you want to make that hiring manager's job easier to see who else they might want to reach out to, who might be better qualified? So my advice is, if you're actively looking for work, turn that off. I don't want you to know who else might do the job better than me. I want you to stop looking at LinkedIn once you've come across my profile. So that's where you go. So how do you get to your account settings and privacy? At the very top of your LinkedIn toolbar, there's going to be an icon with your profile picture. And again, hopefully you have one, and hopefully it's current. When you click on that, it drops down that menu, and right there next to the arrow is account settings and privacy. So when you click on that, it takes you to a screen that looks like this. If you need to bail, right at the top of the screen, it says back to LinkedIn. That gets you right back to where you were in your profile. But basically you have, on the left-hand side, you have sort of the main topics: account preferences, sign in and security, visibility, communications, data privacy, and advertising data. If you click on each, you get a submenu of different things. So under account preferences, you get profile information, you get site preferences, syncing options, subscriptions and payments, partners and services, and account management. My advice is to actually click through each of these options. LinkedIn does a pretty good job of explaining what they mean, what happens if you turn something on or off, or you make a setting yes or no. They do a pretty decent job of that. If you're still uncertain, you can use the LinkedIn help screen, or you know what, shoot me an email. I'm happy to walk you through how I have my account set and why I have it set that way. I don't have any issue sharing that. The next topic down is sign in and security. And so that's, you'll notice on that screenshot, well, actually that's not true for sign in and security, but moving along, visibility. So this is the visibility of your LinkedIn activity. So that's where you would turn off the share my network updates or my profile updates with my network. That's where you would go. You would go under visibility. Communications, how do you get your notifications? If you would rather get a little pop-up that appears on your desktop because you find that helpful, you can turn that on there. If that's annoying, you can turn that off there. You can set up your email that you want to be notified. You can select the type of notifications. You know, I want to be notified by email when one of my connections changes jobs. You know, so there's different ways you can customize the messaging experience. So again, click through each of these main topics and each of these subtopics, and you know, there's no right or wrong. You can also pick one, and if you find out, you know what, it's not enough or it's too much, you can go in and change it after a while. So it's easy to do, and I encourage you to really take the time. A lot of these are personal preferences. There's no right or wrong way to do something. You know, so just take the time to investigate. There's under data privacy, there's job seeking preferences, and we'll talk about jobs in a second. There are other applications that sync up with LinkedIn that you can customize there. And I mentioned earlier in the presentation that one of the ways LinkedIn makes money, besides trying to convince you to upgrade to a paid account, which you don't necessarily need to do. But one of the ways they do it is by showing you ads, and you're going to be shown ads whether you like it or not. So you might as well, my attitude is you might as well customize those preferences and make them relevant, right? I don't need to see ads that have to do with chemistry kits. I'm not a chemist. I'm not in that industry, but I am in advertising and marketing and social media. So if there's some new social platform or some new marketing analytics software that's out, that might actually be interesting and useful to me. So if you're going to show me an ad, at least show me something that might be useful and helpful to me. You know, at least that's my, you know, my opinion on advertising data. It's no secret that most people use LinkedIn for job seeking or recruiting, either way. So how you get to jobs is there is a little briefcase icon, you know, in the middle of your top toolbar there that I've boxed in. And once you click on that, if you click on the search button that I've outlined in the bottom slide, it will show you some of the main topics and filters. But if you click on all filters, which is what that right-hand arrow is pointing to, it will expose you to all the filters at your disposal. And there's a lot there. I've listed them all out for you. You can do multiple filters simultaneously. It's similar to that previous slide we talked about with just general searches. So you can talk about experience level, whether it's, you know, entry level or it's, you know, senior level. You can include company names. You can talk about full-time, part-time, whether or not remote is a possibility. Some companies, when they post a job, allow you to apply for that job right from the LinkedIn platform. You never have to leave the platform, which is all the more reason why you want your profile to be really robust. Other companies, when they post a job to LinkedIn, when you click apply, it takes you out of the LinkedIn platform and onto their website or a third-party website where you complete the application there. So if you're really into easy apply, where you never have to leave the platform, and I've done a handful of those, and it truly is easy, you can filter, I only want to see jobs with an easy apply. So that's something. You can apply for most recent posted versus most relevant. It'd be great if it was both, right? You can do any of these. You can do, if you really want to stand out, if you're worried about cutting through the clutter, there's a really popular job and there's probably going to be 100 applicants. So how do I break through the clutter? You can intentionally filter for jobs that have under 10 applicants, which is really cool. Fair chance employer is kind of a new filter for them. If you have a sketchy background, if you've been arrested, there are companies that will say, hey, we give a fair chance to people, even if you have a questionable background. You can filter for that. So again, you can filter for any one of these or a combination of these, and you can save your searches. You can create a cadence for how often you want to receive notifications about those searches. You can, as you can see on that left-hand panel of the screenshot, you can research salary. Now, if I was interested in, well, what does a digital marketing specialist, which is my current job title, what does a digital marketing specialist make on average in Rochester, New York? LinkedIn isn't just going to tell me that. They want something in return. So they're going to make me share what my current salary is and, you know, where I work and more details about what I do before they share their information, which is, you know, it's good and bad, right? LinkedIn claims they're not going to publicly disclose that information anywhere else. You'll be anonymous with what you share. You know, so it's kind of a give and take for them. But you know, it may be helpful. There are sites outside of LinkedIn where you can research that same thing. So don't feel like you're trapped by LinkedIn and having to share that information before you get something in return, but it's there for you if you choose to use it. Here's where you would go. And LinkedIn often has things in multiple places, but here's where you can go for skills assessments. If you want to practice some interview preparation, either certain types of questions, interview questions, or questions that are, you know, different ways where you can answer something that you're worried about. They have an interview prep section. You can work on building your resume. And there are different settings for when you apply through LinkedIn. So one of them is you can upload your resume. You can upload different versions of your resume. You can, you know, there's all sorts of functions. So again, explore. A lot of these settings and preferences are personal in nature, so decide what fits your needs best. Also with jobs is you can let recruiters know that you're quote unquote open to work. So when you go to your own personal profile, so this top screenshot is what mine looks like when I log in and view my profile. So you see my name, you see my headline there. Again, this is using a desktop as an example, not mobile. But right below that blue button that says open to, you can say show recruiters you're open to work. And so when you click through to get started, it takes you to different steps. It'll ask you a handful of questions. Again, personal preference, you do the settings that you choose. Once you're done with those settings, one of the options is it will apply a filter to your profile. So in the screenshot below, this is a friend and colleague of mine, Ewan, who is currently looking for work. He's looking for Scrum Master positions, project manager positions, things like that. So because he specified those things using this process, he gets that little green banner on his profile picture that says open to work. So you know right away he's looking for work. And in that boxed in section of that bottom screenshot, it specifically in a snapshot tells you what he's looking for. So if we have any recruiters on the phone on the webinar today, anyone who knows of a Scrum Master opportunity, reach out to Ewan. You'll see the spelling of his name right there so that you can search for him and let him know of the opportunity. I'm sure he'd be appreciative. So that's an example of one of the things you can do if you're currently looking for work. Here are some additional tips and tricks. So if you want to message someone you're not connected to, LinkedIn will allow you to do that, but with a free profile, you're limited in the quantity in which you can send those messages out. So one of the things you can do is you can join a common group. If you go to, there's like a little window on the group page that shows you the members, and there's a little link for see all. If you click on the see all, you'll see a list of all the members in that group. And to the right-hand side, next to their name, you can click on that and it gives you the opportunity to message that group member. But again, think about the rules here for engagement that I encouraged you to do before. Think about give to get. Think about making deposits before you make withdrawals. So maybe you initially reach out saying, hey, I love the content you've shared in the group. What are some of the other resources you use to get your industry news? and just start a conversation before you simply say, hey, my name's Arthur. I'd love to add you to my network because I'm looking to grow my network. I mean, that's very selfish and self-centered. So think about give to get, try to engage before you start asking for favors. One of the things you can also do is you can change your news feed order. So when you log into LinkedIn and you start seeing content of people you're connected to and the things that they've engaged with, if you notice, I've drawn an arrow to it right below where you would, do your start a post. There's a little tiny drop-down feature that says sort by, and it's by default configured to sort by top. So what that means is top engagement. So it's going to show you the posts that have the highest level of engagement, the most views, the most likes, the most comments, the most shares, or any combination of those features. You're basically seeing the most popular posts in your newsfeed, not necessarily the most recent post in your newsfeed. So if you check into LinkedIn on a pretty frequent basis, let's say after the result of today's presentation, I've inspired you to go on LinkedIn once or twice a day, even if it's simply to view, you're going to see by default a lot of the same content because it's by default going to show you top engagement posts. So there's where you can toggle, change it to recent, and suddenly you'll see content that you might not have seen earlier in the day when you last checked in. The key here is LinkedIn will switch it back to top. So just be aware of that. It doesn't, just because you changed it to recent, it won't stick and stay recent for you going forward. I've mentioned a couple times that one of the ways LinkedIn makes money is through paid accounts. And they've changed this feature over the years. It used to just be like one paid account. And then they decided, you know what? People might want a paid account for different reasons, right? A job seeker might want different features than a recruiter. And a recruiter might want different features than a salesperson. And someone who is actively managing a business profile, they might want different features. So they've split their paid account into 4 different buckets. Each of those buckets has different features. They cost different amounts. But the thing to keep in mind is LinkedIn will often give you a 1-month free trial, and they will stick to that. And so definitely set yourself a personal calendar reminder to either, opt out once you hit that month or continue with it. Because if you forget, they'll charge you. So, and the basic gist, I mentioned each of these 4 buckets have different features. Basically, what they entail is more. So you get more direct messages that you could send. Or when you search on results, if the free account will return, let's say 200 results, the paid account will return 500 results or unlimited results. On previous slides, I listed all the filters that are available. That's with the free account. With the paid account, you might get even more filters that you can use. So is it worth it? Honestly, it depends. It really depends on your situation, how you want to use it. If you're unsure, try it for free for a month. See if you like it. I was able to do a free trial way back when. So one of the things that I used it for was strictly, I mean, it's professional in a way, but it was really more personal, was, I'm a graduate of Ithaca College. I wanted to connect with other IC graduates in the Rochester area. And yeah, I could search for that, but it would only return, a certain quantity of results. So I used the paid account, my free trial. I got to see, a lot more people. And because I had access to more direct messages, I could send a message to those people saying, hey, I'm looking to set up a local networking group for Ithaca College alumni, regardless of what your major was or when you graduated. If you'd like to join the group, here's a link. And so I was able to build so I created a group on LinkedIn, and I was able to promote my group to those people. and reach people that way. So there's all sorts of ways you could use a paid account if you want to, try it. I don't get a commission if you sign up for it. So, I take no offense if you choose it's not for you. And I've also been laid off in the past. Honestly, I could think, when money's tight, when you're relying on unemployment, there's probably a lot of better things you could do with your limited resources, your limited funds, than pay LinkedIn for a handful of extra features. But you might find that those features are worth the cost. Maybe you'd rather do that than pay a professional resume writer. So it's all personal preference. You decide for yourself. Another additional tip and trick is you have the ability to bookmark useful content and save it for later. So I, on the side, I'm a social media manager for a local networking organization called the August Group. So for those in Rochester, you may have heard of it. It's a group that facilitates networking during non-COVID times. Typically, it was done in person, but help facilitate networking connections for the purposes of finding employment and sharing tips and resources and other opportunities. So I try as a social media manager to share articles on our Facebook page and the LinkedIn group, on our Twitter account. I try to share articles that I think people would find useful. Maybe it's tips about resume, maybe it's tips about job search, it could be tips about networking, whatever it is. So if I come across something in my newsfeed that I'm like, what, this would be great to share, at a later date on Facebook, I can bookmark it and save it so I don't have to remember who shared it, when did they share it, and where was it. And how you do that is when you come across content that someone else has shared, you see the ellipsis, the 3 horizontal dots there in the corner of the post. If you click on that, it drops down a menu where you have different options. And the first one listed there is save. So if you click save, it saves it to your account so you can access it later. And how you access it later is when you go to your profile. If you look at the bottom screenshot, right below your headline and the count of how many people have viewed your profile and how many people have viewed your latest post, you'll see a little link there that says my, what does it say? My saves. So if you click on that, it takes you to the right-hand screenshot, and it separates it into jobs you may have posted in the past. So you'll see one listed there for Harvey Research, which I was last employed with them, 8 years ago. But LinkedIn has a memory like an elephant, so it's still there if I ever wanted to access it. And you have jobs that maybe you've applied to. So that's yet another place where you can access that. Again, LinkedIn often has the ability to access features from more than one method. You can also, anything that you've done with learning. And lastly, any post you save. So if you want to find that post that you bookmark, you go to Save Post, and it'll be a list there. And so it's a great way to, because LinkedIn has a lot of great stuff. So it's a great way for you to quickly access things that you found particularly helpful that you want to share elsewhere. So I have a handful of final thoughts here, and then we will, we'll wrap things up, and I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. One of the things that you want to do is stay in touch with key network contacts using InMail or other features. And I get reminded on a daily basis because I've opted in to this type of notification, but every day someone in my network has a birthday. You can wish them a happy birthday. Takes 2 seconds, happy birthday, depending on how quick you can type. Maybe somebody has changed jobs. Maybe somebody has gotten a promotion, whatever. Maybe somebody was featured in a news article somewhere. Super quick to just shoot someone a quick note, because think about it. At the end of the day, if you've had regular contact with them and you become top of mind. So if I find myself looking for work, and I hope my network thinks of me first when they think of someone with digital marketing or social media. But if I've been dormant for years, yeah, I'm connected to them, but I haven't engaged with them at all, I'm not top of mind, and I haven't provided any value to them. So why would they want to help me? Yeah, we're connected, but Maybe they do so because out of the kindness of their heart, but if you've engaged with them, you're more likely to reap benefits down the line. LinkedIn is a great way to look for jobs, apply for jobs, get job alerts that you can customize. You want to make sure you take action at least 3 to 5 times a week. And by taking action, I mean like a post or an article, whether it's on an individual's feed or something they've shared in a group. Comment, share. I said earlier, like is good, comments better, share is even better than that. And you can either do an update to your profile or post something, add value, add to the content stream. You can promote your LinkedIn profile elsewhere for inbound traffic. So, LinkedIn doesn't have to be in a silo, right? You can take your LinkedIn URL after you customize it, and you can add it to your Facebook page, put it on your resume. If you have a website, put it there. If you have a blog, put it there. So you can promote your LinkedIn account elsewhere. If you apply to a job, most recruiters obviously know about LinkedIn. Most recruiters obviously use LinkedIn, but make their job easy. Connect the dots for them, share your profile with them directly. You want to make sure your profile is switched to public visibility as much as you're comfortable with doing so. There's a setting as you explore all those settings, and there's a ton of them. There's a setting that says allow Google, it may not be these words exactly, but the gist is allow Google to scan my profile so it can be included with results on Google. If you're looking for work, why not, right? So what that means is if somebody uses Google to search for a particular set of keywords, your LinkedIn profile can show up in the results if you have that feature turned on. I mentioned at the beginning, LinkedIn changes constantly. It's super annoying. Most of the features are still there. Every now and then they will move a feature behind the paywall. So that means if you like a feature, you may have to have a paid account to access it. It varies, but they inevitably move things more often than the other social media platforms that I'm on. A great way to add value to your network and become a valued connection to people is to be a problem solver for them. So if you see in someone's post, they complain about something or they ask a question about something, find an article that helps them out, do them a favor like that, be a problem solver, add value, and suddenly you become a valued network connection to those people. And they're more likely to help you and return the favor as a result. And lastly, you want to be visible to be found. And how you become visible is you're active on the platform. So this is not who was it, Ron Popeil with the infomercial, set it and forget it. You do not want to do that with LinkedIn. You do not want to create your profile and hope it magically works for you and that you're magically found by recruiters and what have you. I mean, I'll share a personal story. My last presentation at the Penfield Library was on using social media as a job search tool. And I covered obviously LinkedIn, but I also covered how do you use Facebook to help you find a job? How do you use Twitter? How do you use all these other social media platforms? One of the people in attendance was one of my daughters who had recently graduated from college. And she knew all about LinkedIn, but because I'm dad, telling her, hey, you should create a LinkedIn profile. She's like, yeah, dad, what do you know? But, my ex-wife encouraged her to attend the presentation. She did. She, improved her LinkedIn profile. Literally within a couple of weeks after attending that presentation, she was found by a recruiter on LinkedIn and landed a contract assignment locally. And now makes more than I do. So you have to be visible on the platform to be found. That is the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. That is also my contact information if you want to reach out to me directly. So there's my email, there's my LinkedIn, and there's also my website where I have written some blog posts and things like that. I embarrassingly admit that my website is a little out of date. I have probably not updated things as dedicatedly as I should, especially someone in the marketing industry. But the old adage about the cobbler's kids, go without shoes, kind of a thing. But I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have.
Arthur, there's a couple of notes in the chat.
Okay.
The first one is I have both. Whoops, chat just went away from me. Hang on a second.
Okay.
I have both a personal LinkedIn account and a business account. Is there a way to adjust all these visibility privacy settings for just one or the other, or will my preferences always apply to both?
If they are separate accounts, you should be able to adjust them separately. And I'm assuming by separate accounts, the person means that they actually log in with like a different username or a different password. And if that's the case, then yes, you would be able to adjust them separately.
And this question is from Carrie. So if you want to add something else to that, Carrie, you could unmute yourself and ask another question.
Hi, yeah, actually they're not separate. So my business account is right through my personal account.
Okay.
So does that mean that they will be linked?
Does that mean like you manage a business?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, the settings for your business page should be different from your settings for your personal page. I mean, it would carry through because you're the same user for both. But let's say you made your personal page like fully private. You're worried about people seeing that you've viewed their profile, so you go fully incognito. That doesn't mean your business page that you manage suddenly becomes invisible to people.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then Steve had a question, or had a comment, I guess. Although I'm currently employed, I still get messages from recruiters with openings for IT jobs. They seem to take one keyword from my profile and then never bother to actually look at it. If they had, they could see that I do not have an IT background. Other than deleting keywords, is there any way to avoid this?
That's a good question. I mean, things that I would tend to focus on are make sure your headline, well, let's think about it this way, right? Recruiters don't get paid if they don't place you into the job. So I also often get contacted by recruiters for jobs that I had nothing at all to do with because I've mentioned project management. So, they may look at me for like an accounting job that happens to manage accounting projects, but you need to be a CPA. And clearly I'm not a CPA. So there are often, situations like that can't be avoided. But I would make sure that your headline is clear, your summary is clear. And if you are, if you're happily employed, you just kind of have to ignore it. It's kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. But I think if you make sure your skills have been ordered in such that they truly showcase the industry that you're in, and your headline is clear and your summary is clear, it's not a guarantee that they're still not going to contact you, but it should help.
Steve, do you have another question? Feel free to ask. No? Okay. So I'll email the presentation sometime next week, and with a probably a follow-up survey to the attendees. So I'm grateful for all of you who came today, especially as it's turning out to be a really nice day out there. So on behalf of the Penfield Library, I want to say thanks to Arthur. And in my email, I'll also mention where, if someone wanted to view the video again, it's going to be posted on the Town of Penfield TV website. That will probably take a couple of weeks, but I'll list the link for that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for coming today.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.